The first thing we're going to talk about today is what's called perpendicular lines. Okay, and you don't have to write perpendicular every time, this lengthy word. You can draw this symbol, okay, perpendicular. Okay, that tells me that means perpendicular. It shows two lines meeting at a perpendicular angle. So perpendicular, what it means is that two lines meet at a 90-degree angle. So they form two lines, form, it's gross looking, form a 90-degree angle. Okay, so the angle in between there is 90 degrees. All right. It also means that their slopes, are what's called opposite reciprocal, and I write reflip here to remind myself what I'm doing each time. So opposite means I'm changing my sign from plus to minus or minus to plus. Refliprical means I am flipping my fraction. Flipping my fraction. Okay, meaning if I have a slope of 3, okay, the perpendicular slope to 3 would then be opposite sign. This is a positive 3, so I would have a negative number over here. And flipping my fraction means, well, this is really just a 3 over a 1, so my new perpendicular slope would be 1 over 3. Okay, so I would have negative 1/3 as my new perpendicular slope to my original slope of 3. Okay, so let's look at some examples now. If I have these 6 lines, okay, I need to be able to identify their slopes and decide if they are perpendicular or what their relationship is in this case. Okay, so these are all my lines. In order to decide if something is perpendicular to something else, they either need to be in the same form, okay, whether we're talking point-slope form, slope-intercept form, or standard form. Okay, I need to be able to pick out their slopes. So I don't want to use standard form because that doesn't tell me which slope or what my slope is. So I need to be looking at point-slope and slope-intercept form. So this first equation here, y equals -1, it's black here. Okay, y equals -1. Well, if I'm looking at y equals mx plus b, there isn't a b in this equation. It's just y, or there isn't an x, I'm sorry, in this equation. It's just y equals -1. That tells me this is y equals 0x minus 1, meaning my slope is just 0. Okay. In number 2, I'm looking at y equals -1/5 x plus 1. So out of my y equals mx plus b equations, I can see m is right next to my x, so my slope is -1/5. Okay, number 3 down here, I've got y equals -4x plus 6. Again, it's in slope-intercept, and my slope is just right next to my x. So far, with these 3 slopes, we've found 0, -1/5, and -4, and none of those are opposite reciprocals of each other. Okay, so we have to keep going to see if we have any that end up being opposite and reciprocal. Okay, so let's look at number 4. This is y minus 7 equals 5 times x minus 1. This isn't in slope-intercept form, but it is in point-slope form. Remember that point slope is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, so we're looking for this m now, and we see that right here. Outside our parenthesis is 5. Okay, so I'm hoping that we are seeing from there that these 2 lines are opposite reciprocals of each other. One is -1/5 and one is positive 5 over 1. Okay, so those lines 2 and 4 are actually perpendicular to each other. Okay, if we keep going, we see x equals 4. Okay, I'm hoping that we remember that if I just have x equals a number, that this is really just a vertical line at x equals 4, right? Well, if this is a vertical line, remember back up here, y equals -1 is just a horizontal line at y is -1. So if we have a horizontal line and a vertical line, okay, this slope is undefined. If we have an undefined slope and a 0 slope, okay, these are also perpendicular to each other. Last, if we keep going to number 6, again, we're back in slope-intercept form. So if we have y equals mx plus b, there's our m of 1/4. Well, if we look at our remaining slope here, okay, we have -4 and 1/4. Those are also opposite reciprocals of each other. Okay, so we had 3 perpendicular lines here. Let's go ahead and flip to the next screen and see the graphs of all of these equations. Okay, so before we're overwhelmed, this is my graph right here of y equals -1. Okay, this graph right here, this line right here. Okay, y equals -1. This is my graph, okay, of x equals 4, and those we can see form that 90-degree angle. They are completely perpendicular to each other. Okay, next we have that line y equals -1/5 x plus 1. Okay, when we graph this, we start at +1 right here on our y, and we go down 1 and to the right 5, down 1 to the right 5, or back up 1 and to the right 5, back up 1, to the left 5. And then that becomes our line. We also have that perpendicular line that was in point slope form. You can start this at the point 1, 7. Remember, when you take that point out, my signs change. So I go all the way up to the point 1, 7 right here. And then my slope tells me that I go up 5 and over 1. Well, my graph stops there, so I need to go down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then back 1. Down 5, and then back 1. Okay, and that's my perpendicular line there. And again, we can see that right angle that is formed. Okay, and last we have our red lines. Okay, we've got y equals -4x plus 6. So I start at 6. I go down 4 and over 1, down 4 and over 1, down 4 and over 1, and that becomes this line here. Okay, over here I've got y equals 1/4 x plus 1. So I start at 1, I go up 1 and over 4, up 1 and over 4, or I go down 1 and back 4, down 1 and back 4, and that becomes this line right here. Okay, and again, we can see that they are meeting at a 90-degree angle. Okay, so that's what we're looking for when we are looking for perpendicular slopes. It needs to be in the form of either point slope or slope intercept so that I can see that slope visibly without forgetting the fact that if it's a vertical line, okay, my slope is undefined, and if it's a horizontal line, my slope is 0, and those two lines, vertical and horizontal, are perpendicular to each other. Okay. So now you're going to head over to my.hrw.com. You're going to use your username and a new password that you set yourself, okay, to watch videos number 1 and video number 5. Okay, 2, 3, and 4 I've already covered, and you don't need to see any of them. So just watch numbers 1 and 5 and have fun.